Once you have completed the setup for the picking workbench and created and completed some sales orders, you can run the picking workbench. When you run the picking workbench, the system will search for orders that match the criteria entered and then try to reserve the inventory. If the inventory can be reserved, then a picking list will be generated. Let's switch over to AX and I'll generate a picking workbench session. The picking workbench is found in Inventory Management, under Common, and then Picking Workbench. Here, you'll click the new icon to create a new picking workbench session. A new picking session ID is assigned automatically, and you can enter a description. You may want to include information in the description such as the date, warehouse, and general reason for the picking session. So I've entered a description for my picking session. Next, I'll want to enter the criteria. On the General Fast tab, you can see the basic information that is displayed on the Overview tab. The criteria for the session is entered onto the Criteria Fast tab. You'll notice that this looks similar to the Workbench Profiles form. You can optionally select to enter criteria, select to run this by a sales order, an item number, or a continuity. If you've created a profile, you can select that profile from the drop-down box by selecting it. Once you've selected the profile, the criteria from that profile will update into the other fields. You can then override any other information that you want for the criteria. The next step in the process is to generate the picking batches. This is done by clicking the Generate Picking Batches button. This will open an info log where you can see the details of its process. It's important to note that this may take a long time to run, depending on the volume of sales orders that are in your system and the volume of transactions and lines. For that reason, it may be advisable to use the Setup Batch button instead, so that you can schedule this to be executed at a specific time during the day on the batch server instead of on your computer in an ad hoc mode. After you've created and generated the session, you'll notice that the picking batches are populated. Here you can see the picking batch that's created. If there are multiple picking batches created, the warehouse manager can use the Assign To column to select the worker from the warehouse that's responsible for completing these particular picking lists. You'll also be able to see the additional information. In this case, there are 20 lines and 2 sales orders. Next, on the Picking List tab, you'll be able to see which picking lists are related to that particular batch. In this case, there are 2 different picking lists. You can see the customer information, mode of delivery, and delivery terms. Then if you go to the Lines tab, you'll be able to see the lines for each order. When you select an order in the Picking List tab, the lines on the bottom half of the form will update based on the items for that particular order. When you're ready, you can go ahead and start to print the batches. You can print the batches individually by using the Print Batch button. This is useful if you want to print them one at a time and sort them for each of the workers that you'll be assigning it to. Alternatively, you can use the Print Session button at the top to mass print all of the batches that are a part of your picking session. Once you've printed the picking batches, you can start to complete them. When a worker comes back and they've completed the picking for all of the items in that particular picking batch, you'll mark the Complete checkbox. This indicates to the system that that particular batch is completed. Once all of the batches in a particular session are completed, the status on the Overview tab will update to Completed as well. Alternatively, you can use the Complete button here to select and indicate that all of the batches have been completed. The Generate Picking Batches option may take a long time to run depending on the criteria that you have entered and the number of sales orders in your system. If an item is not picked, it could be due to one of the following reasons. The item could not be reserved because there is no available inventory. The item's model group allows negative inventory, however, reservation will not reserve against a negative quantity. During production, the purchase order was reserved against the sales order. When production is reported completed, the item stays reserved on order. Picking tries to re-reserve and it cannot. The sales order is shipped complete and one or more of the items cannot be reserved.